All right, gentlemen, here we are, still in chapter 8. Remember, Nick has now gone into the city, and he gets a call from Jordan. She wants to meet up. And she is a little upset that, Nick didn't want to see her the night before. Remember, after they got back to Tom's house, she wanted Nick to come in and, hang out, have some time together. And she didn't feel that he was very nice about it. And he says, how could it have mattered then? I mean, they just saw a woman die in the middle of the road, right? Like, he wasn't in the mood. But it just kind of, Jordan was, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. Is that Jordan's dismissiveness, her lack of, empathy and care for others? Certainly Nick was empathetic. He had met Myrtle. He had seen her hit in the face by Tom. And, he clearly was affected by the fact that she was killed in this way. So, in any case, they talk a little more, but they decide, Nick just doesn't want to see her, right? The sort of, the thrill is gone, okay? So, Nick wants to get back on the train and go back to Gatsby's house. He called the house, but now he wants to get there. All right. And now Nick gives us another one of these interludes. Okay, so he's coming back on the train, and when he passed the ash heaps in the Valley of the Ashes, he went to the other side of the car. Now, one reason he wanted to do that is he wanted to see if there was a crowd around where Myrtle had been killed, where she'd been hit. So little boys searching for dark spots in the dust, people talking about it over and over, right? It would be like a big gossip central. And they call it Myrtle Wilson's tragic achievement, right? She gained notoriety. So, but now Nick tells us he wants to take a step back. And this is another one of those moments. This is like when Conrad's Marlowe, peeps up on the Thames and tells us, that somebody shuffled or that Marlowe took a deep drag from his pipe. This is another instance where the narrator is giving us these cues, okay? And what he's going to tell us is about what happened after the garage after we left the night before, okay? So remember, I mean, once Nick and Jordan and Tom leave, like, they don't know what happened. Nick doesn't know what happened there. So this is now him filling in those gaps. I really think, there's valuable analysis to be done in looking at when Nick decides to give us these sort of flashback interludes, right? And so what he finds out is that there was a crowd there until long after midnight. Remember, they end up, Tom, Jordan, and Nick got home a little after 9:15, if I recall correctly. So people were there for hours afterwards. And Michaelis, the Greek guy, still keeps trying to come in and talk. And he stayed there with him until dawn. And over that night, Wilson starts talking a little more, right? His muttering changes and it becomes a little more coherent. And he keeps focusing on this yellow car, right? He announced that he had a way of finding out whom the yellow car belonged to, okay? And then he brings up that, a couple months ago, my wife came home from the city and her face was bruised and her nose swollen, okay? So, lots going on in Wilson's mind right now. I mean, he's, deeply in a PTSD moment right here, right? I mean, he's actually probably still in the traumatic moment. We're not post-traumatic here. We're still in trauma. So, he now is going to be looking for that car, right? He's going to find ways to look for that car, okay? And he also remembers about that day when she had her nose all busted, okay? Now, Wilson tells Michaelis to look in that drawer, and in that drawer there is a small but expensive dog leash made of leather and braided silver. Braided silver is pretty expensive. I mean, silver is a precious metal. That's pretty pricey for a dog leash, right? So now Wilson doesn't really have a dog. So he says, I found it yesterday afternoon. She tried to tell me about it, but I knew it was something funny. Okay? She had it wrapped in tissue paper on her bureau. All right, so that's kind of a weird thing. And then all of a sudden, Wilson kind of blurts out, oh my God, his comforter left several explanations in the air. Then he killed her, said Wilson. His mouth dropped open suddenly. I have a way of finding out. He's going to find out who killed her. The Greek guy, Michaelis, keeps saying it was an accident, but Wilson thinks, no, it was a murder, okay? And he says it was the man in that car. She ran out to speak to him, and he wouldn't stop. Okay. Michaelis saw her run out to the car, too, but he didn't think that's why she was doing it. He thought she'd been running away from her husband, not that she was running to something. Okay? So, that's where this conversation takes them. All right? And Wilson, here's a really phenomenal symbolic moment, guys. Wilson tells Michaelis that he used to tell his wife, he used to tell her that she might fool me, but she couldn't fool God. I'd take her to the window and I'd say, God knows what you've been doing, everything you've been doing, but you may fool me, but you can't fool God. God sees everything. Who is the God that sees everything? It's the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg. The eyes, remember, that were from the optometrist advertisement. So those eyes now, those big blue eyes with the yellow glass frames, those eyes have now taken on this symbolic importance for Wilson. They're like the eyes of God. They're the eyes that see all. They're the eyes that see and judge. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop here because now that the scene between Michaelis and Wilson ends, because after Michaelis went home to sleep, he awoke 4 hours later and hurried back to the garage, but Wilson was already gone. And now we have a good idea of what Wilson's up to. He's going to find out who was the man driving that yellow car, because that man murdered my wife. All right, that's where we are in Chapter 8.